Hello everyone, it's the Tectonic here. Now I'm just going to do a video review of the Samsung Galaxy S3. Now I've got the blue version in front of me. If you didn't know, the Galaxy S3 is a high-end Android phone. It's got a quad-core 1.6 GHz processor, 1 GB of RAM, and a 4.8-inch Super AMOLED screen. It's running Ice Cream Sandwich 4.0. Doesn't have the latest Jelly Bean update just yet. Packs an 8 megapixel camera. So I've got the Pebble Blue version in front of me, and I actually prefer this version over the white. I think the white one looks a bit cheaper, and the main problem with the white one is the silver accents around the edges, which makes it feel a bit or look a bit cheap, whereas the blue one, the accents aren't as noticeable, and it's got a, don't know if you can make it out, but it's got a nice brushed look about it despite feeling a bit smooth, and it's got a nice shiny back as well. And all in all, I do actually prefer the blue version, and I think if you mainly run dark backgrounds on it as well, I think it's got a cleaner, sleeker look compared to the white version. Now let's just address the first issue that a lot of people have written about, which is in a lot of quarters, many people think that it feels a bit cheap, and for me it's not the fact that the build quality is not very good, or that it doesn't feel very nice in the hand. The main issue and the main reason why people feel it feels cheap is the weight. Now if you've got a massive or a fairly large device like this, you pick it up and it's fairly light, and to be honest, it's not actually that light, but it's deceptively light. What I would say is that it is extremely well made. You know, it doesn't creak at all in the hand. It feels nice. It feels nicely made, and it does have a nice touch to the hand. You know, it's all plastic, and there's nothing that anyone can do to change that. But I feel that a lot of the criticism of it feeling cheap is because of the lightness, and you know, after a few days use, you don't even notice it anymore, and in the end all you notice is the good build quality. So I've got no issues with that. Now, as I said, the phone is quite big, but you know, after a while you get used to it, and then all other phones seem fairly small, and other phone screens feel too small after you use this for a few days. The problem is that if you're using it one-handed and you've got fairly small hands, sometimes you know you're going to struggle to reach the capacitive buttons down at the bottom. But generally, you know, I found it all right to use. The main problem is the back button for me, because you've got to reach all the way across, and it, you know, it takes a bit of awkward maneuvering. The good thing is that Samsung has put the power and lock button on the side on the right here, so rather than reaching all the way to the top, you know, you go a quick flick and it's locked. Now this phone is rocking Android 4.0 Ice Cream Sandwich. As I said, it doesn't have the Jelly Bean update just yet, but it is planned imminently. And of course it's got Samsung's TouchWiz customizations on it. Now whether you're a big fan of TouchWiz or not, there's no doubting that Samsung have done a great job in incorporating it on the Samsung Galaxy S3. You know, it's extremely smooth. You know, there's absolutely zero lag when you use it. So in that sense, they've done a fantastic job. You don't notice any stuttering because of TouchWiz. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of TouchWiz, and I use Apex Launcher as a home screen replacement. My main issue with TouchWiz is the fact that it probably doesn't show up with the live background that I've got now, but I don't like the way that it uses the same background for your home screens as it does for the app menu. I find that slightly confusing. What I also don't like is the dots at the bottom to represent your current home screen, or the current screen that you're on. And if I'm being brutally honest as well, I don't actually like the icons. I think they're fairly dated. I mean, TouchWiz on the whole is a fairly, you know, it's very smooth, but in terms of design coherence, it's not altogether there. It feels like it's been bolted on from various ingredients, from various modules and bolted on. So it doesn't have that sleek coherent look, which is why I generally go for a home screen placement in daily use. But having said that, you know, it probably is one of the better customizations of Android out there. It's very smooth, no issues with it in terms of usability whatsoever. Now, I want to get into some of the Samsung specific customizations of Ice Cream Sandwich. Now, firstly, the keyboard. I think Samsung have done a decent job with the keyboard. You can see it types fairly well. Brown fox jumped over the lazy sheep dog. Okay, probably not so accurate right now. Because I'm typing at an awkward angle. But I mean, the keyboard is acceptable for me. Personally, there are better ones out there on the Android market, or Play as it's now called, which I use. But you know, it's certainly not offensive. Fairly responsive. In terms of text prediction, it could be better, which is why I've gone for a replacement keyboard. But certainly not too bad. Another couple of things that Samsung have added to Ice Cream Sandwich is a couple of the organizer apps. So instead of the standard Google Calendar app, which you find on stock Android phones, you know, they've replaced it with something called S Planner. Now, this is actually one of Samsung's customizations which I do use. I think it's a nice looking calendar app. You know, it syncs nicely with Facebook and my Google Calendar. It looks very nice as well. You know, it's a very usable, I find a very usable calendar app, and certainly not offensive at all. One of the pluses actually of Samsung's customizations. The other thing I don't use that much is Samsung Memo. You know, it's just not something that I regularly use to keep notes. I'd rather download an app from the Play Market to do that sort of thing. But nevertheless, you know, for quick doodles and things like that, if you must make a quick note, it certainly does the job. Now, Samsung have also added a lot of functionality features to the Galaxy S3, you know, all intended to make the phone a bit more usable. I'll run through these and I'll tell you which ones I actually do use on a daily basis. A lot of them I think are there and are a bit gimmicky and I don't use, but the two that I do use is something called Direct Call. Now, with this, what you'll find is that if you've got contact information, whether it's from an SMS or scrolling through your contacts list on the screen, and you pick it up and you put it to your ear, you'll get a little vibration, and that's the phone's way of telling you that it's automatically dialing. And I know it only cuts out one button press, but it's still a very useful feature nonetheless. The other feature I like to use is when you've got a call and you can flip it over, and it will automatically silence the phone. I forget what it's called, but there you are, turn over to mute or pause. They've also got another feature whereby you can silence the phone by putting your hand over the front-facing sensor, which is also quite useful. Now, onto the features that I don't tend to use. They've got a function whereby it's called double tap to top, which I've got on actually, but I don't necessarily use. So when you've got a list of things, you're meant to double tap on the top of the phone, it will take you right to the top. But in general use, I found this a bit too unpredictable. I wasn't entirely sure ever where to tap on the phone, what sort of pressure to apply, and it seemed a bit erratic to me, so that's why I don't use it. The other feature is Smart Stay, which is intended to keep track of your eyes so that when you do use it, the phone screen doesn't dim. But in actual fact, in reality, when you're using it, if you're in a dim room, it doesn't work properly. If you're wearing glasses, it sometimes doesn't work. So it's a nice gimmick, and theoretically it's a good feature, but in actual fact, in practice, it doesn't really work. Another thing which Samsung have added is S-Voice, which is basically their version of Siri. Now, I'll get straight to the point and I'll say that I don't like it. It doesn't work. It relies on a very good connection, being on the phone all the time to pick up what you need, and half the time...
There is your message. Ready to send it.
Yep. Half the time, it just...
Okay.
just doesn't respond in the way that you think you ought to, and it doesn't always pick up your instructions very well. So let's give it a try. What's the weather like today? Now it's picked up that one well, and let's see what it delivers. You see, it takes a while.
Partly sunny today. The current temperature is 20 degrees.
Okay. How tall is Barack Obama?
Six one.
You know what? I mean, right now when I'm doing the video review, it's working fine. But there are instances when you're on a weak signal and without such a good data connection. You know, I'm using it on Wi-Fi now, so it seems to be fine. But I still find it too unpredictable to use usefully. One Samsung feature I do use is the quick rotate from the lock screen to the camera. So although you've got an icon here and you can drag it up to unlock straight to the camera, there's another feature where you can just put your hand on the screen, rotate it, and it flips automatically into camera mode, which is something I do actually quite use a lot. In terms of camera quality, absolutely fantastic. The 8 megapixel shooter is very responsive. Oh, I've got it on video mode, so let me stop that. And let's take a photo. Now, it's got very good focus, and you can take photos extremely quickly, which is great. You know, it's got all the things like burst mode as well, which the HTC One X also has. It's got a very clean user interface, very usable. What I do really like about the phone is its media sharing capabilities. Now, this is a video that I took earlier today, and if you've got a DLNA enabled TV, which I have, you can press one button, and had my TV been well, I can hear that my TV is now playing this downstairs because the volume's gone low. But you can, you know, with one button press, you can just transfer it to your TV. You know, that goes for MP3s, pictures, as well as video. Now, I find that extremely handy. You know, I can shoot a video, I can take a picture. I've got friends around. I can press one button and it'll be on a big screen TV. So then, just my quick final thoughts on the Galaxy S3. You know, for me, it's a superb phone. There are phones out there that'll do certain things better. Certain people won't like TouchWiz as a customization to Android, but for me, it does enough things well across the board to make this an excellent device to use as my main phone. So there we are, folks.